gentleman. And I said, see, and I dragged my foot. And about once a year, he'd say, now about your uncle. And so finally,
go on in there.
Why don't you go in now, hold that door?
I got it. No, it's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
I wasn't too far from Oxford. Because I was at Upper Hayford and it was 61 on the field.
24 P47. Take off at 11:20. Rendezvous with first bomb position over Hancock. Again, the bombers are 24,000.
This would be the 43 time frame. Our fighter planes did not have the range to go all the way to the target with the bombers. So the fighter planes, remember, they're all deployed from England. So the problem is, how do you link up, stay with as far as you can, and then get back safely as a fighter pilot? Your big problem is going to be, when you get out there with your escort role, now you're tied too many much to the bombers. Rush will correct me if I'm wrong on this. But your job is to keep the enemy fighters from the bombers. That's what your job is. Not to be a hot dog and get 25 kills. Now, there might have been cases where people ignored that. But nonetheless, that officially not to happen. So what your problem is, you get out there.
They would brief you, open up the screen, tell you where you're going, give you your codes and so forth, what the weather is expected to be over the target, where the fighter planes will leave, and how to pick them up coming back out. And give you all the directions you need.
Okay.
Well, everybody listened pretty good in that, I reckon.
Yeah, they sure did.
It's life and death.
10 people in your crew, 40 crews, about 400 people there. Once a time. The briefing at that time.
What time would that briefing take place then?
The briefing could take place, depending on where you were going, it might take place at 1 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock. Depending on what time or where you were going, if you're going to Leipzig or Munich or Unamundi or Berlin, or generally in the morning, and then they'd get you up at least an hour ahead of that, take you over to the mess hall, eat your breakfast, after the briefing, and then haul you out to the planes. You mightn't have the same plane, mission after mission, the other time would be flying on a different plane information. Your briefing could, if it's going to be a late evening, or it might be 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on. But most of the missions were early morning, unless you were going over to Pas-de-Calais and bomb buzz bombs, or you're going into after the troops are on the ground, going in for support of them. Of course, you had, when you went out to the plane, you weren't sure what kind of bombs you had till you got out there. You could have fragment bombs if you're going to bomb troops. You could have time bombs. You didn't know whether your bomb had a time on it or not.
Ninth Fighter Command is
And I
613
received about a third or fourth mission to come down
We can
bomb
expect intercept anywhere along the mission route. Latest intelligence reports suggest that very heavy fighter concentrations, as many as 400 aircraft are in the area between Lake Romer and Lake
going
Charles.
out, coming
This is where the formation will most likely be
You went
found.
up and you made
As
your
far as
formation and you
anti-aircraft,
got up.
expect isolated
We had
battery
to run
positions near any visual
25,
navigation plan,
27,000
especially
feet
at
to get
intersections where a river, railroad line,
And
or
it
the
took a
auto
long
line.
time.
Increased
Just to
concentration
look out
of
the
any
clouds,
aircraft are
and the
expected
planes
to
next
close
to
to the
it
force
was all
zones
pieces.
and in the immediate vicinity of any
Giant bomb on there, and it was time to go off certain
Previous
time
information
after.
reports tell us that whenever
We
the
left
fire
the
suddenly
airfield.
break off and disappear, you can expect a flag. Soon
And
and
we
lots of
planes
it.
that actually blew up on their
All
own,
that
from
is.
bombs that they were carrying. Because,
That's it. Could be another rock.
you could carry fragment bombs for personnel, fire bombs, they'd be in clusters. And after they dropped out of the plane, then they'd spread out and hit the ground, and depending if you want permanent place style or how you
All
want.
right,
Use the
Go
big
over it one
bombs
more
in
time.
factories like
are there any changes?
fireball, chemical factories, things like that.
No changes, sir.
Big bombs.
Lieutenant Colonel Shelley, Group A,
Bombardment
37 P-47s. Take off at 11:18 Zulu. Rendezvous with 3rd Bomber Division over Drummer Lake at 12:40 Z. The bomber should be at 24,000 feet.
So you had all different types of bombs.
Lieutenant Colonel
You didn't
Gabreski,
know
lead
it
Group B,
until you got to the
24
plane.
P-47s.
It don't even be loaded by the time you get the plane, so your arm bearers have been done.
Rendezvous with
plane,
1st Bomb
when you
Division
went out
over
with the
Anchor.
plane,
Again, the bombers
the
are
mechanics,
24,000.
he took
The DOT window is
co-pilot.
1425.
Navigator checked his equipment out, bombardier checked his equipment out,
Okay.
radio operator his,
Weather.
and the pilot,
A high-pressure system
co-pilot,
now
navigator, bombardier,
changed the
mechanic, went up to the hatch in front of the plane, which
Shredded tubular
was
steel,
17,
6 to 8 tenths
and all the rest of it
Basis
went into the
2000.
side door on the back,
Cool estimate.
because you had that bomb bay in between, it was real narrow, you couldn't get through it from the back, it was real narrow.
Surface winds northeasterly at less than 10 knots.
It was, no discouragement.
Let me ask you a mundane question. What did they feed you for breakfast?
Remain unchanged.
Eggs, like a lot of eggs, yes.
So they didn't change the diet before you were going out?
No.
Get your powdered eggs.
Eggs, toast.
Or 30-year-olds.
We had a real good colonel in charge of ours. A lot of times he would come out, pick a bunch of them up, take it back. We had probably 2 miles to go to the mess hall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had a couple miles to go to the mess hall. So he'd come out. Jerry sent a truck out, or he'd come out himself. Oh, my
Scattered
God.
cloud cover increases to broken conditions.
I asked Dad once if they had food or drink on the flights because they were so long, and he said, "Oh no, absolutely not." About the food and drink on the flight.
All down the flight.
No Dutch courage.
No,
You had oxygen on.
we had oxygen.
Did they have urinals?
Urinal,
Little can?
you used the bomb bay.
Yeah.
You had the ball turret down there, he'd come out, he'd be sucking. And all the back out and splash right on his glass. And freeze on there. And then he couldn't see. He'd go up there and give you something. That reached,
Ladies
Sweat
and
clothes,
gentlemen,
not too
reports
low,
suggest
though.
a very heavy fighter concentration.
every time
As
he got
many
the
as
plane,
400
he took
aircraft
off.
are in the area between
He
Lake
had to
Rover
go
and Lake
bathroom.
Flagler. That's where the formation
urinate.
will most likely be mounted.
So he found,
And the aircraft. Expect
Come
isolated battery positions
Take
at
out
any
all
visual
the
navigation
that.
platform.
they didn't put it up on a fin on a wall.
Railroad guys, what
He let it go that way.
else? In the immediate vicinity of any
Especially all, they really hit the fan, huh?
Describe what your assigned duties were once the flight took
That's
off.
all I have, sir.
Once the flight took off, as far as the radio operator,
That's it.
unless you were the lead plane, you were the only one that prevented doing your code key, or your transmitter. Rest of your trip, all you did was listen to the code coming in over the messages coming in over the radio.
All right.
You had to keep it on.
Are there any
Any
changes?
message was sent.
Ops?
No
Outside
changes,
of
sir.
that,
Lieutenant Colonel Shelley, Group A, 37 T-47s. Take off at 11:18 Zulu. Rendezvous with 3rd Bomber Division over Drummer Lake at 12:40 Z.
Most
The
radio
bomber should be at
operators that I
24,000 feet.
find all the flak
Lieutenant Colonel Gabreski, lead Group B,
put underneath their
24
seats.
P-47. Take off
Keep
at
talking,
11:20
because
Z.
flak coming up through.
Rendezvous with 1st Bomb Division over Anchor.
A lot of planes had a lot more flak jackets than they were supposed to have. Radio operators would do that. The others, they were moved around more than the radio operator was.
So you stayed in one
One
place
place,
for 10 hours maybe?
So did you
Radio
have,
operator's room, and that was, yeah.
was there ever a period of time when radio silence was enforced?
radio and silence was of course all the time for those who were not the lead plane. The lead plane, the person who played had been in charge of the group, which might be 3 or 4. You'd have one plane, and generally a colonel would be flying, and the lead plane is the lead. Might be your commander from your base or some other base, and they would their radio operators had more freedom. We went to Leipzig, and we got down there, and we lost an engine, couldn't keep up with the group. And so we tried to keep up, couldn't, so we turned around and dropped her. It was cloudy. We dropped her bombs, got rid of them. We don't know where they led or anything else. But we got back to, well, the navigator wasn't our regular navigator, it was another from another crew. And pilot called him up and wanted to know, he said, get him a fix back to the base so that we could go back out of the channel where we were supposed to. Navigator told him, he says, I don't know where we are.
Sweet.
So he said, have the radio operator get a fix for us. So, when I heard that, of course, I was on intercom at the same time. I told the pilot, called the pilot, I said, if you want me to open the key, I'll do it on your say-so, but not on his. Because the minute I opened that key, we're gonna have German fighters on us. So he said, forget about it. So we broke out into the clouds, right over Koblenz. And Koblenz was right on the Rhine River, and the Rhine River was loaded with flak barges. They let loose on us. The first shot went right up through the tail, right alongside of the tail gunner. Next one went right up through the bomb bay and exploded above us. All these exploded above us. And that one took out part of our hydraulic system, took out part of our electrical system, and most of it, in fact. And so, pilot, or the navigator then was able to tell us where he was.
Got a visual on it.
So we got back to base. We had 134 holes.
Jeez.
On that trip.
Wow.
No one got hit?
Huh?
Any of the crew get hit?
Went right up alongside, clear right on out to the tail alongside of it.
Well, I guess would that be because they didn't realize you'd be lower than you would?
Well,
lower
I'm
and
saying,
they
when
get
you
their
ran
fuses hit
in,
back?
when you ran in flat, they'd start out, they had their altitudes for that flat calibrated to where they thought you were gonna be.
Yeah, you were lower than that.
And we were lower than that, that really went on through us.
You were lucky. But how much altitude could you maintain then with 3 engines on that?
Well, with that, on that particular one, we were able to maintain pretty much our altitude or that, I forgot what it was. We had a trip to Berlin, and we had the same thing happen. And we lost the engine. In fact, that time the prop, or the engine went with the prop kept.
Uh-oh. That's worse.
That was worse. And the oil had leaked out of the motor and back over the wing and caught on fire. The pilot dove down, finally got it out. And but everybody in the group, all they saw was went down in flames. So we went back out over Frankfurt, back out the North Sea, back on that one. We had threw out all of our guns, ammunition, anything we could get rid of.
Keep it over in the air.
To keep it in the air on that one.
Wow.
We got back to base 3 hours after the rest of the flight. They had our stuff out of our console gun into the supply.
Ready to send back.
Ready to put a new crew in for the next part.
Wow. That is great. Do you want to take a look at the belly tank?
I just have one more question. What did you consider the biggest risks that you faced? Was it flying flak or enemy fighters or cheat or accident?
Because, see, we got down there at, well, our first mission was 14th of June. Cordelia was the 6th. And we went to Ricochet that day. And bombed it. And, there were German fighter jets that we never saw. We got back, we had 2 holes in the plane we didn't even know about. We didn't even know we got hit. But the fighter planes, the flak was supposed to be fighter planes. The fighter planes were more or less limited. Later on in our mission, we had B-38s together. They could go further inland with us. And they had to cover a whole lot further in and out than they had before. So the flak was supposed to be as long as you didn't see the fire within the flak, you were all right. Just the black smoke, you didn't need to worry. But you get to see that flame, that's when you begin to worry about getting hit because flak flying out from.
Wow. When you're at 25,000 feet, was it 30 below zero temperature? At some point, I know they had electrical heating in the gloves and the boots. But how can you operate a radio with a big old mid on? You must have to take it off.
Take it on. If you had to operate, you had to turn it off.
How long did that take off for Foxfire? So, minutes?
So we only had big heavy real small. The G, like you got that G, like you had like the Fs didn't.
What would a gunner have to do with this gun jammed? Can't do much with those big guns. Touch the metal, it must stick to it like a tongue on the cold pole.
Yeah, that's right. You wouldn't want to touch anything. Yeah.
Were you afraid from illnesses or losses of crew members? Were you always flying with the same crew?
Most of the time. If you go to the 401st Bombardment Group, you'll find that I flew 32 years out. Grew our crew with 32 basically. The reason for that, we had 32, maybe another part of the squadron went to have a pilot for the mission. They had the rest of the pilots. We had air pilots, so we take radio operator. And as far as Bombardier, when we went over, we had 10 actors with Bombardier. Short got over there, short of Bombardier, planes get hit in the nose. Take out the Bombardier and the navigator, the rest of them would be all right. That's the crew. And so we were short, so a lot of our planes, I flew a 9-man crew. He took one waist runner out. He was the top, and he would drop his one on the lead plane with the Bombardier dropped his, and the airplane dropped theirs.
Oh, so you just signal all the rest of the formation?
Well, the minute that he dropped his, we saw his drop out.
And you hit the top.
The whole group dropped there, and it was kept, dropped their bombs. Might be only 1 or 2 Bombardiers flying in the whole group.
Yeah.
Because of the shortage of Bombardier, we had a shortage of Bombardier, we had a shortage of navigators. Times, somebody was saying that we had 5 take over.
In your position of plane, what was the nearest other human being to you? Where you were
Nearest
back
would
of
be
the
the bomb and the ball turret.
You were right in the middle of the airplane.
The radio operator was right behind the bomb bay.
Behind the bomb bay.
And you had your 2 side windows. So you were one for the right and left cutter.
And did you have that overhead gun, that 50 caliber?
Yeah.
That was
She
yours?
had overhead gun, radio compartment.
How would you avoid shooting off the tail of the airplane with that thing? Just be careful.
You didn't have any sense of the ball turret gunner was in his turret most of the time, right? So you didn't really
I
have any
tried
sense
to,
of it was
I
an
tried
unit.
to get down in there once, and
That was enough, huh?
that was no part of me.
But you didn't have a sense of there's another person there that
Oh,
was
yeah.
sharing your space.
Yeah.
Right, well, it was back, there was a wall, a tree, right behind that wall. Of course, they rolled the turret, or they rolled the turret up, rolled the hatch, and you crawl down in there, and roll the turret back down.
You want to take a look at the belly tank bar of us and see if it meets the test of authenticity? What the name of the game was here was build airplanes and fly them. Memphis Belle came off the line in 1942 at Boeing Seattle. She was still, you know, the buildup was still going on. She flew to Maine, and then from there to Bassingbourn, England. Was picked up in Maine by the crew, Bob Morgan and his crew, and they named her at that point Memphis Belle. And the story here is that Memphis Belle was Bob Morgan's hope for and kid. He was very, very interested in gaining the permanent affections of Margaret Cole. So as she was from Memphis, it seemed appropriate to him to name the airplane Memphis Belle. As it turned out, he never became Mrs. Robert Morgan. And then Morgan later came back to the States with this airplane in May of '43 and transitioned into B-29s and flew in the Pacific Theater.
God was up in there,
Hang on up to here.
and Bob Bays was right ahead of that. Bob's right ahead of that wall there.
This was the top turret, you said?
No, the top turret was up just ahead of the other wall. Where the
We'll see the
engineer
top to it in a minute.
would bag that turret up there, right behind the pilot and co-pilot. Radio operator here, it was here that the waist gutters wanted each of these windows. Tail gutter back there, the ball turret gutter was in there.
Russell, you mentioned earlier sending messages in code. Was that encrypted? Did you have to do that as well, or was it just Morse code?
Set those in the clear.
Oh, the floor is that.
Yeah. But did somebody say you had to have a proficiency of so many words per minute
35 words a minute.
in Morse code?
Do you still remember that?
A few of the letters. I've gotten a lot of that. Jody said something about it last night. And I still remember her. Majority of it, because I have been with it all.
But that was sending it or reading it as it came in.
Reading it. They had said it.
You can do both at 35 a minute. Wow.
35 words a minute.
Judy.
Take a look at that airplane. Now, one of the things, let me ask you a question, Russell. Was your airplane this color or was it natural inside?
We threw both.
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 Ah,
The newer ones that we got were silver
okay,
outside edges.
okay.
The older ones were, first ones that came out of the G's were like this. This color.
We did the research on this one. Our research historian went out to Boeing Seattle. They pulled the production records. And this one came out silver throughout
Yeah,
inside.
They painted it.
So what happened? You don't see much silver in there. Well, obviously, in one of the restoration efforts along the way, they sort of thought they were doing it right, but messed it up. So we're going to have to take all that out. And if you look, say, down in here, there's corrosion there. That's the rust that visits itself upon aluminum and turns it into lacy white. Yeah. And please take a look here, for example, at this side. Betty Jane Holden is here. Grant Fouch. Stawell. What happened here? How did these names get on this fuselage? What happened was, 1943, the airplane comes back from the 25 missions. Now, it was the first airplane to go run 25 missions and come home. We make that distinction very clear because many airplanes finished 25 missions, some of them before Bell did, but they didn't come home. One of the reasons it's thought was that one of the ones who did this was an airplane called Hell's Angels. And in the sensitivities of the time, it was not considered appropriate to have Hell's Angels getting the kind of veneration that we intended to keep upon the crew of Nicholas Bell. So Hell's Angels did not come back. Bell did. But during the Bond tour, apparently people pressed their names onto the fuselage of the airplane. We didn't know this when we got the airplane because it was all painted. We stripped it off and whoa. So now what are we going to do? Well, our research guys are checking the veracity of these things. If we can tie them to real people, it's thought we might decide to leave a section of that as to show those. We may not. We have to decide that. That's one things we'll decide is we restore the airplane to the configuration of mission 23. Not 25 and not 21, 23. That's because we got the best records on that. It's been chosen the most representative mission. That's what we want to show. This is the Museum of Record, so we want to show it as we know. So all these wires, all the pipes, are new. This airplane will be restored to as close as we can get it to the standards it was at the time. Now, do we know those? Well, it's an interesting point. We know what it was when it left the plant, Seattle. However, in the war, we made some very, very smart decisions. Don't make every plane the same at the top configuration because you don't know what the theater's going to require. Produce a vanilla airplane, modify it for the theater, upgrade it, so to speak. So this was a vanilla airplane, came here to Wright Field, modified for the European theater, then it went to Maine, hence to New England, hence international. So now, what was done in Dayton? Was anything done in Maine? Did they fool around with it in Bassingbourn? Very likely. Well, to the extent we have records, we'll verify that and make sure we're faithful to the extent we can. Well, we're going to have to make educated guesses. So that's the goal. Get it back so that somebody like Russ climbs in and say, yep, that's the way it was. And that faithful experience. Okay?
Was it?
Where did you say?
I'm very impressed with
You
your
see
first
what
aid
you
kit.
can see.
Not outside.
Yeah, your gun was up in this.
Oh, so that was filled in.
Yeah, that was for the gun.
Was there much of a bank of radio equipment?
Don't get big about it.
That's right.
You see very fast.
Life gives you some interesting decisions to make in this biz.
Was there any sound or insulation in there? Because it looks like that pretty thin skin.
That's it.
Oh, so no double wall.
But it hurt when you hit turbulence and got knocked against the sides of this thing.
When we restored, I think it was our
What
T3,
else would fill this
we found
space?
inside
The rest of it?
Here?
the 3D weather.
That's all really.
Oh, so you had a whole
Oh, yeah,
compartment then?
there's a little floor in here.
Right. But you had the whole compartment.
Yeah. The Bombay, it was right ahead of that next compartment.
Look underneath when you go around.
Where the pilot is right up the first, above that. Pilot, co-pilot, and the engineer. All three up there. But when they got into the plane, they went through the hatch in front. When we got in, we went through the
Oh, the back
one
there.
back there.
Stumbling forward. Excuse me.
And then is this a ball turret?
That's on the wall turret.
There's the turret.
Okay, we ready to move on, Russ?
There's a wall right there. And that passes up through the next center right to this piece right here.
Ah, okay, that's where that fit.
Yeah, that's just, that hangs there.
No.
Oh, I'm fine.
Shelley never had an interesting job.
Yes, he did.
Russ was telling us about the belly gunner's problems.
I didn't see that glass on the front there, that's what he could see out of.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not, yeah, depending on what had happened above him. So but he wouldn't be in the whole mission, would he?
No, he was like, when we took off, maybe we went across the channel. That's what he'd get
He'd
in.
climb in when you got over Europe. Okay. Okay, well, you're looking here at the back edge of the wing. We've obviously got the ailerons and flaps off to work on. We feel pretty good about the wings. They're in better shape, relatively speaking, than the rest of the airplane. Thank goodness. One of the wings we know, I think it's the left one, it was replaced in '43 because she got shelled pretty badly, and they decided they would put a new wing on. That was done in the field. Very typical corner.
This here would roll right up and he'd go in there.
So his legs were in that end?
Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
little foot pedals in there.
That's what he used to control that. He used to control it.
The foot pedals would.
He had for the guns. Because his head had to be free to operate the guns.
That's insane. They didn't volunteer for that job, did they?
Some did. There's always your smaller guy. But on here, the tallest guys, on here they have listed the tallest guys that we had. As no, he was the right weight. Ligdar, he was actually a armor gunner.
So who was actually
Dodge
involved?
was actually a volunteer. He was the smallest one. McCabe was the tail gunner. And Ligdar was the waist gunner. Gabriel was actually a bombardier. He was the second lieutenant.
Be a good thing to come this way.
Okay.
There's the hatch, the pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, engineer, went up into the plane.
Russ, could you pass through the bomb compartment or not?
Yeah.
Because there are doors on each side. You could walk the beam if you needed to.
There's the walkway through.
Okay,
Yeah,
but it
let me
wasn't
make a
common.
point.
Real narrow.
The guys who had a couple guys on the tour here from the Commemorative Air Force, and they owned a couple of B-17s, one of which is Sentimental Journey. They have her in various parts of the country. You can get on their website and find the locations. And for a modest sum of money, which will not seem modest at the time, you can take a half-hour, 45-minute ride in. I don't know what the time is right now, but if you're interested, it's worth it. I know you're going to take $400 or $450 or whatever. It's a huge amount of money. It's a memory that'll last you a lifetime. Think of it in nose terms. I did it last year. I look at the nose of B-17F. This is the model Morgan flew. This name here. He was the captain, and as Rush was indicating, the captain tended to stay with the crew through the time, right? And you had some rotation, typically among others. Is that also correct? That's what we've been told. So, you're looking at it here, that you probably wouldn't have had the bombardier's name on it. He would have changed.
Because we didn't have the plane. Generally, we got to have a different plane.
Okay.
Except the same mission.
10 missions. I understand that was not usual. It was kind of unusual to have that kind of continuity. So as you look at, here's her name, and there's the nose art, Memphis Belle. Now the artist was Tony Starcer. It's his grandson, I think, that did this, or grandnephew, I can't remember which. Tony's dead. Although he did do the art on our B-17 we have in the main gallery, Shoo 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 Baby. And we see that the Senate did not have quite Starcer's skill. This shoulder would work well on a football linebacker, but I don't think seriously that 25 mission show. And I can't remember, Pete, do you recall what the gold and the red stars are?
Research is looking into that, but they believe the red stars indicate when the aircraft was probably a group lead.
Okay.
But they're looking into it. They're not
checking
sure
that
yet.
out. We know that communication. Of course, the number of swastikas underneath there is the number of enemy aircraft that was believed to be shot down by Major Bell's gunners. Remember, you have 5 people flying the airplane, 5 people fighting the airplane. So these were designed to fight their way in. To go back to this whole theory I was talking about, the bomber will always get in. That's how you do it. You're going to fight your way in. 11 or 13 guns. You're going to fight your way back out. And that was going to win the war because the populace was going to rise up and require the populace to end the war. Well, that never happened. But they did win the war. Because 1 million men had to be diverted from other duties to fight the onslaught of the bombers. Germany had that 1 million men in other places and hadn't worried about the construction of the damage, and hadn't worried about the gas shortage, which we fought with.
Navigator Bobby Daire, we'd have to come out through that opening.
We'll get the group over here so you can tell them all that.
No. Out here you got the cheap gun, right? At this point we don't have. This is just a big plexiglass cover here.
That's a nice move.
You had the Northern bomb sight sitting on here. Believe me, if you get on that B-17, you'll get a chance. They make sure you get a chance to ride out here in the bombardier seat, and it's a great spot to be. You see what Boeing B-17 I think we can probably find a market for you. At least a nice charitable donation deduction. No, what more can we say about Memphis Bell?
Navigator here.
Yeah, Dan.
Navigator used that table over there.
Okay. And this was the observation window?
Yeah.
The square one?
The guns are up here.
Yeah, they couldn't use these cheat guns very well. They were just virtually useless.
They wouldn't move much.
Did the bombardier fire the guns when he wasn't?
Yes. He had a remote control. I'll show you when we get to the B-17G. There's a handle he threw remote. Yeah.
Is there any significance in the blue bathing suit on this side and red on the other?
You know, that's a good question. One of the things we do know is that those will not be on the final airplane. We'll redo them because we've got the exact colors and exact proportions. We've got the technology. We'll redo that, and our guys will put it where it ought to look and did look on 23.
Some places, this is good because we have the same crew on top. Both places did that, so both people have crews.
No,
We have stuff
A couple bombs over the other side.
So Lady Diana, Lady of the Cheese. Let me tell you something. You'll crawl down through that little tunnel. So make sure that your back isn't acting up that day.
To get out, back out.
You can go out and walk into the pilots.
You could walk into the pilot's gear, no problem.
You could walk
You have
there.
to sit down and back in.
And you could walk, you couldn't walk, Bob Gear couldn't go from here to there. Because of the catwalk across the bay.
You fly in that baby and you walk across that catwalk, you look down.
Bay doors open.
Even if they're closed, there's that much space.
Right there's your insulation.
You see it, don't you?
You see it.
How cold was it?
No. We figured your temperature dropped 2 degrees, 1,000 feet. Whatever the temperature was over there.
And you didn't have the opportunity really to move much, right?
No.
You had to kind of sit there and breathe. What was considered the most hazardous post here?
Most hazardous? I would say probably more bombardiers than batteries.
Just because they're in front and they're
Because they
exposed.
were in front.
When that plane goes down, what part goes down first?
Probably also flying the flag.
Well, I can only tell you this. You look on the records, you'll find pictures of B-17s coming back with all sorts of parts of the airplane gone. One particular one I remember is the airplane is gone from the windshield forward. The windshield forward is just gone. The airplane flew back and landed. But that's what Russ is saying. If you were out there ahead of that, there's a famous story of a B-17 getting hit by flak, the tail gun, and severed the tail. Severed the tail. The tail gunner back there, he just rides it down. It turned out the configuration by accident was just sufficiently good that he sort of glided down and he got out of it alive.
As with odors,
Well,
advised to wear flight vests at all times. Did you wear flak jackets continuously on board?
Most of us did. They bring a bed and blab down. And there were two covers to try to get the suit on and so forth. You just lay it down. Generally didn't even use it.
Okay, we got all the...
Keep flak from hitting you.
Did they help you stay warm at all, or did
No,
they
flak
make it worse?
didn't keep you warm. It didn't help keep
They told us they started with heavy leather coats with and lining, and then by the end they had heated suits.
You didn't have occasion to check it personally, huh? Okay, Patterson Group, are there any questions that you want to ask Russ while we have the Memphis Bell here as our backdrop? This is our time to do it. Then we need to split up, and Pete and I will go our separate ways, so we have a lot of restoration area to cover yet. I want to give you an opportunity. Anything you wanted to mention?
Only on this, there was a couple of corrections on there with the tail end. Back part of it. Down here it says 33, it should be 35. Missions, maybe a crew would need a pilot or whatever, they'd take yours. But you, so at the end I had two missions right beside what they got us here. One was to Walston Brook, one was to Breeden. The one to Breeden was the final mission. That was, we led the group.
Russ, I'd like to honor you for your service to our country. I'd like to honor you for your service to your country. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. We were just talking about that. We think the red stars indicate the group command leader of this division. White Patriot Squadron. Obviously, the number of bombs and number of missions.
They tried to get
the number of swastikas and number of kills. In some cases, you see that was added. All of that stuff was added to the bomb.
So you always had, on the lead group, you always had, generally, the colonel from the headquarters, flew the mission with you. Very seldom was it anybody else. We'd have the extra person with you.
Anything more we want to cover here, Russell? Okay, let's split into the groups then. Let me give you one more thing to bring up the speed of where we got here. Memphis Belle would have been junked, as were most B-17s after the war. They were simply old airplanes and tired after her bond sail tour. In 1943, she went into training duty, and then by 1945, the war ends, and she's found in Altus, Oklahoma, in a boneyard, waiting to be broken up or sold. Many airplanes that after were sold for the value of the gas still left in their tanks. So that, and the city of Memphis, the mayor happened to hear about it, got over there, and for something like $450, bought the Bell. flew it back and put it on display outside the National Guard Army, for which we honor the city of Memphis. Unfortunately, they weren't able to preserve her in that arena. She deteriorated steadily to the point where it was a question we had to fix her or destroy her. We're going to fix her and put her on display and keep this icon of American military progress. Because the bombing campaign, while it didn't win the war in the way it was thought it would, nonetheless, when Hitler had to put 1 million men to defend against the bombers, there was the second front that Stalin was always hollering about. It happened beginning in 42. Think of all the guns that they put there to shoot at you, that they could have had out shooting at other people. So the bombing campaign was a huge success, but it didn't work in the way we thought it was going to. And so the most of the bombing campaign really took place in 44. You were part of that. It was a stalemate until we got there, pretty much.
And you mentioned that 25 missions was a big number for an airplane.
No,
Yeah. So these didn't fly a lot of
the average was 15. The average crew lasted 15 missions in 43.
If you go into that bomb, or that 401st bomber, look at all those planes. You have listed all the planes. 401st had. And if you go down through the bring each of those up, you'll find that a lot of them, 1 or 2 missions, especially early. They're later on, you got more fighter protection. And on the flak was knocked out too.
You see, once we landed in Normandy, then the Germans had to divert resources to counteracting the Normandy situation. At the same time, Doolittle had put the fighters into the aggressive mode. He changed the motto of Fighter Command, 8th Air Force. The motto he saw when he went in there was, the first duty of the fighter pilot is to bring the bomber home safely. He said, we got to change that. It needs to read, the first duty of the fighter pilot is to destroy the enemy's fighter. Bingo! So they sent them out ahead, they caught the German fighters running, and basically in a couple of months they destroyed over 4,000 Nazi fighters. That helped greatly.
We saw, longer we were there, we saw less and less of the fighting.
And then after they got the 9th Air Force on the ground in France, they actually went out after the Luftwaffe. They went to their bases, which was a terribly dangerous thing, you know. The enemy put a few anti-aircraft guns around there and some pretty doggone good gunners, and he was able to get you out of the sky. And a strafing run on an airbase was about the most dangerous thing you could do as a B-47 pilot. But nonetheless, they did it, and just wrecked them. Okay, if we're through with this one, let's break into the Richard Blues we had questions. All right. Twin 50s. One of the things you have to remember, too, is you look at American airplanes in this period of time. Remember, we talk about a 50 caliber gun. That's the bullet. Now, is that going to give a little bit of hurt to whatever it hits at the speed of sound? You better believe it. And they fire at the rate of over 1,000 a minute. Those guns do. So we had firepower. That's the American approach to the world, firepower. You don't believe it? Go to Boston Harbor and climb on the Constitution. That great War of 1812 frigate. You will find on there 24-pounder guns. British frigate of the same vintage threw an 18-pounder gun. That's the weight of the ball it shot. Furthermore, we used a lead cartridge instead of a powder bag, and we could fire 3 rounds every 2 of theirs. Yep. That's for sure. Let's take a look over here.
You doing all right on the walking?
Oh, yeah.
Now you get an idea.
Talk to you more about that.
Take a look at this airplane.
This
is a Japanese-built airplane, and the water story runs along these lines. Japan built, at the beginning of World War II, had built one of the best of the early fighters. That would be the Zero.
And here's the coolie right across front of the plane. See how close they could get to it? Those props, because they figured that the props would chase the evil spirits away. And every now and then, one of them would get hit in the head with those props. They get too close to those props.
That chased the evil spirits away all right. It wasn't about evil spirits anymore.
Spirits didn't mess with it. Don't leave many of the good ones behind either.
Yeah, you better hope that you. Want to go upstairs now? Check it out.
Never in there.
Never got this.
Control.
Didn't worry about
Never
this.
got it control.
But you would have got. They would have been communicating with you from here.
Yeah,
You'd be on the
that's
receiving
what
end of.
communications was,
Yeah, of that.
Yeah.
So here's your.
What, they didn't trust you? Wouldn't let you in the tower?
Well, you had no reason to be over the tower.
And if you didn't have a reason to be there, you figured you better hadn't be there because you might get in trouble by doing that, right?
That's right.
He said he'd heard that if you had wounded on board, you'd send up a flare and they'd allow you to land first.
We'd have the ambulances out.
That
And
was.
you set up a red flare that's, let them know that you had wounded aboard.
And that was fairly frequent, wasn't it, Russ?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any wounded come back on your?
No, we never had any wounded.
We were lucky. Memphis Belle didn't either. I remember she was very fortunate in that regard. Everybody got killed on the crew of Memphis Belle. There was one reason it was nice to bring her back, because they weren't going to advertise the adverse statistics, so to speak.
It's interesting.
Through the runways. Surrendered air crew members.
That's almost a mile.
Yeah.
I love these old posters. Look at that one.
6,000.
Glass.
All that little canopy up there?
Canopy up there. Drove his large airline.
So there's a gun in there?
There's yeah.
Now, these are the two waste guns.
That's the waste gun on this one, and the other is ball turret. There's a ball turret.
Where's the tail gun? In the back.
Yeah, they won't bomb, but guess what? They didn't take the one yeah. Yeah, and guess what?
Flack houses are all over.
It didn't really matter if you were
They did it when you was up there and
rolling.
back.
Well, I noticed these doors are enclosed for the waste gunners. I was under
These
the
are,
impression
the
they
ones that we had were open. Now, this is later bottom. Later bottoms came out. Ones we were flying at, those were open.
30 seconds and we're done.
And then somebody sat up there to watch for behind the back.
Well, that's radio operator.
Oh, that's yours. Okay, that's just
radio operator.
I'm tired.
So would that have been open also, or did you have a counter?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any kills? Did you have any kills?
All right. We will see you at Nana Patsy. Bye. Yep.
I'm still baffled that you thought that was a bright idea. Just to...
That rolled up, and so you could get into it inside the plane. And roll back up and operate that he hadn't had controls of that.
So he was basically in flight. He was laying on his back,
Practically.
rotating around. Huh. Could he rotate it up if there was a plane underneath him to shoot at, or?
How far down can you shoot down? How far could
Well,
you rotate
it could straight down because he had to go for him to get in when it was out the plane.
For him to get in. Actually, it's a remarkable bit of engineering, but still crazy.
Or that little would be.
I want to hear all about this because the C-109 was the tanker version of the B-24. We built many more B-24s than we did B-17s. In fact, Henry Ford put off a whole plant outside of Detroit at Willow Run to build B-24s. And by the time he got that plant up to rate, he was kicking one out every hour. So that's the production that we had. We had thousands of these, and they made into that tanker version.
Yeah.
I knew about that, but go ahead, Russ, tell us.
Took all the armament off of it. We was right there beside that. We hit ice one time. and a big chunk of ice flew off of the prop right through that window and hit me right there at the deck.
Ooh. Right through the window?
Right through the window.
Oh, man.
Again, was there any insulation on the inside of the
Insulation?
No insulation.
What do you think this is?
Probably a
It's
30-second
a war, for Pete's sake.
How much of it was filled with gasoline then?
Bombays, the Bombays are the length of the Bombays there.
Which have big tanks in
They
there?
had, either, some of them had 2,000 gallon tanks, some of them had 450 or 500 gallon.
What would you do? Leave the whole tank at the when you took it, or
They'd
just
drain
load it into
drain them
into 55-gallon drums? That
I
kind
don't
of
know
thing.
what they did, but we generally went and ate and came back.
And they had it ready to go. So you're flying over the hump to where? To Kunming?
Kunming and Chengdu.
In Chengdu. And who was using the gas then? The Flying Tigers? The 14th Air Force?
14th Air Force.
Yeah, that was the successor of Flying Tigers.
Then we went just before that. We flew those from March when we got over there up until about the middle of July. And they brought in C-54s.
Okay.
And then we hauled them by drums. And those we had to haul the drums that ran the big tanks.
So they quit using the
Quit
C-109?
using the our base quit using the C-109. Like the C-54, we used that up until we closed the base up.
And that was after the war ended. Fantastic.
And where were you when you learned the war ended?
And the Assam Valley of India.
And how did you hear?
Was it newspaper or radio or what? You didn't have your own radio, of course.
Where'd
When
you
they radio
spread?
station broadcast.
Not on CNN.
We'd go over to Kunming, drop our load, fly back to Mission, Burma, and that was always crowded in. And they had you stacked up every 500 feet from the ground up to 22,000 feet.
How many planes in formation?
Well, you just flew some,
Individual.
you flew a
You're
long
just flying in stacked.
You hope that that controller on the ground knew where every one of those planes was, because every now and then you'd be flying along and you see a light flash by here, another plane that had another plane at the same altitude as they had you.
Whoops.
So you entered the pattern at the top and then circled down until you landed.
Yeah, when you came
at
in,
a
they
regular
decided
rate.
as you came in, they decided you're 22,000 feet or 22.5, and you work your way down every 500 feet. They bring one into land, then they bring the next one down 500 feet.
So there was a time interval that you wanted. You had to
You
come
didn't
down.
have a time, it was dependent on that controller on the ground.
And that depended on your gas too. If you were
There
low
were,
on gas,
there
what'd
were
you do?
times that we flew into Kunming, and we had such a headwind that we had to pick up gas in order to get back to Mission.
Whoops.
To pick up gas. So you haul the gas over there, maybe picking up the same gas.
Refilling your own tanks to go back.
But between the two of you, if you were carrying a load of about 2,000 gallons of gas or fuel, how many planes was that supplying for missions? Do you know how many gallons do some of those
Gee, I was
planes?
running through my recollection. What would they take?
Seems to me the
You're
ratio
gonna
is not
use,
large.
let's see, if an
Well, they had a lot of, they had more than
P-47
our
uses
base.
100 gallons
Several
an hour.
bases haul the gas in.
And it's got a range of 600 miles and flies at 300 miles.
That's what I'm thinking. This is a long
Well,
run.
you had
for a short
Something in the vicinity of
I don't know how
500
much
gallons,
we
I would
did
guess,
it
for a
there.
fighter.
Oh, yeah.
And then there were a lot of bases there. See, they ran a pipeline from Calcutta to the coast up that far. And they couldn't run any farther because Japanese had the Burma Trail.
Oh.
So that's the reason they had to could only take it so far that they had to fly the rest of it.
You were flying fuel, but they flew munitions and food and
Everything.
Well, yeah, your C-54,
C-46 and C-54, C-47s, all three.
C-47s, when we went from Calcutta to up the air base, we had, on that we had chickens, we had eggs, we had everything. Besides the personnel that they were hauling to the base. No door. Took the door off.
luxury.
don't know whether it was up here or why, but there was no door on
On the C-46s?
the C-47s.
C-47? There's more problem than it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, the story is told that in C-46 is flying over the hump. They're flying Chinese soldiers one day. And the crew chief says to the Chinese general, tell your troops, you know, if anybody gets airsick, they go back to this open door and vomit out the open door. He didn't want his airplane getting all messed up. Some young recruit gets airsick. The Chinese general throws the recruit out the door.
At the steerman there.
Oh, yeah.
That was the other B2, other primary.
The
They had
primary
that
training,
one.
you bet.
Some bases had that one for training, and the others had the 19 that we saw.
Dan estimates 500 gallons.
That's what Jim just said, that load would supply 4 planes. So you literally were running an airlift.
Oh, yeah.
Not just fuel, but...
That's the
I didn't-
logistics role. The logistics role comes in World War II for the airplane. It's still here. And the China-Burma India theater is where it really was brought to its fullest. We use it all over the world. We move parts all over the world.
But I had only understood that fuel went over the hump.
Oh,
I didn't
no.
realize it was... Well, Dan's got a car. Sorry.
No, I thought that was $500 to fill it.
She's the one I pulled up at her place with the Suburban one time. I was very proud of this nice Suburban. She walks out. I'm sitting in the driver's seat. She says, "You control it all from here." I learned don't meddle with that people. Okay. What else you want to see while we're here? We're looking at the B-24. The B-24 is a more modern airplane than the B-17 by 4 years. It doesn't go to service. No, it was not a popular airplane.
It was 17, you could lose an engine and fly. He said you didn't know what you were doing.
That was the problem. And you never saw near the story of B-24s coming back shot to head that you see of B-17s. Let me show you a picture of this.
Do they carry a similar payload?
No, but 50% more.
Oh, I should talk a little bit about Nozar here. Who named the lady, Diana, Lady of the Chase?
It was
The crew or the pilot? Or who?
the crew, it was when we got it.
It had already been named. Usually the pilot did, as in the case of Memphis Belle. When this baby came in, now this is a combat veteran. She flew a lot of missions in Africa. And you see the sort of a pinkish tone to the sand color, which was the camouflage for the African theater. When we came in, we looked at this and said, what the heck's the name Strawberry Bitch mean? Where'd that come from? Great Vargas pinup girl on there, nice nose art. Where'd the name come from? Well, there was no one around, so there was lots of theories, and I had a few of my own. One was that the pilot got rolled in a bar. Another was that he got a Dear John letter, both from a Strawberry blonde. Maybe it was a term of endearment for a sweetheart or wife. I didn't think that was too likely in that day and age, but it's possible. So that was what we were thinking. And then we get one of the veterans of the crew comes back. And we ask him, what was the story behind that? Oh, he said. Well, he says, the crew named it. The pilot just okayed the crew's suggested name. Okay, why did you name it Strawberry Bitch? Oh, that airplane was just a bitch to work on.
When we hit that ice that time, the pilot told the engineer to go back and
Take a look at this, Gary.
dump the tanks, get rid of the tanks. And so he went back and pulled the emergency down. Came back up and pilot, they broke off, the tanks were still back.
Take a look as you come by the airplane. Again, you're looking at the classic airplane, wide open. Well, I suspect, Rusty, were these the shells that went through you at the Koblenz? Yeah.
My word, I didn't know
Here's your shell.
And then it was full of little pieces?
The most feared gun of World War II. The Germans had the best field gun. They used it was designed as an anti-aircraft gun. They used it in tanks as a field gun. and it was absolutely the best of its kind. So we referred that. And thousands of these things were used to defend against bombers. That meant the tankers had an easier time out on the eastern front because of Soviet tankers.
I imagine this kind of shells when you said that one went up to the... Wow.
Oh, they got these be close.
But Russ was explaining that when they threw fuel over the hump without the armaments, they were going to prove that fuel.
On one side.